So I think this video will be useful not just for people that are building something based on suiteCRM, but other software development projects. So I hope you learned something useful from this, as I've been using it for a few months, and I think it's really like a perfect solution for a small to medium size or even a large project, or for example if you're working with a remote team. So this solution is called Gitlab. It's completely open source. It's based on a Python framework, I believe, and it allows you to manage multiple things all in one place. So one of the things that you can do is basic Git repository management. So you can push changes, you can manage merge requests, manage multiple branches, etc., etc. All of that is available in the repository section, where you can see the files, commits, branches, tags, contributors, etc., etc. So it's pretty feature rich in that regard. Another useful feature is the ticket management. So you can assign tickets in the in this fashion here, in the Kanban fashion, or you can also line them up in a list like this. This board here has elements which can be dragged and dropped. And it even has a time tracking capability. So if you're managing a remote team such as myself, where there's several people working on the project, it's useful because you can see how much time was spent on which feature, as well as who was working on it. So if there's multiple people working, you just assign a developer and then they can log in the amount of time it took them to do a specific task. There's also another very useful thing, which is the documentation management. So you can store everything in one place. So you can have either something in the wiki format, or you can write documentation like we did in our case. We put stuff in the docs folder here, and it's stored in .md formats which are supported here. So you can embed images, you can embed iframes. If you allow certain features, then you can put even scripts, HTML markup. All the standard MD stuff markup can be managed here as well. It's pretty complete also in terms of the user management. So you can have multiple users which have multiple roles. You can have one user, for example, your accountant, which is just going to be checking the hours submitted by the developers. You can have another master account, which allows developers to push changes to prod, to master, for example, and the developers which can submit the merge requests, which will then be processed by the system administrator. You can impersonate users, so you can see what the users see once they log in using the authorizations that you've allowed, and get a sense of how they will see the system once they log in with their username and password. It also has something which is very useful called auto deployment via CI/CD. So this stuff here is basically sort of like a webhook. So whenever, for example, you have changes that occurred on master, and what you want to do is you want to push those changes to your production server or to your dev server or pre-prod, prod, whatever you have. You can do it here. So once a change is pushed, then you can have an automated script come in and pull the changes from the Git repository, like that your master and your pre-prod or prod are synced with your repository. So it's basically automated deployments. It's just one of the examples. You can have multiple pipelines running, doing multiple things. You can have pre-testing prior to pushing to prod. So if you have some Selenium tests that are there in place, you can also activate it through this stuff here. In terms of just some advice about the usage, I highly recommend going the agile development style. So having sprints, also doing daily stand-ups, I think is a must, especially when you have remote teams working. And now with the situation in the world, I think it's going to become more and more prevalent. So doing daily calls, at least a 1 hour call with your remote team, just to see who is doing what and how far they've progressed. It's also good to maybe have a dedicated software architect, if you're not one yourself, who is going to be managing the team. So if you're the captain, then you want to have a lieutenant who is under you, who's managing the other developers working for you. So I highly recommend this tool. There's nothing bad that comes to mind about this tool, apart from the fact that it's resource intensive. I would recommend at least 1 GB of RAM on your server. But apart from that, it's a really, really complete, mature solution that I would highly recommend, and it's completely free also. So if you found this video helpful, please do leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I hope you do subscribe because more of these will be made in the future. Thank you so much.